All right, good afternoon, everyone. I am so excited to have you all today for today's virtual training on sustaining your VITA program, Steps for Successful Fundraising. This is Jenny Huang. I am the Outreach Associate for the Get It Back campaign. So the Get It Back campaign is a national effort at the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities to promote the Earned Income Tax Credit and the Child Tax Credit. We work with many community organizations, advocacy groups, and other organizations to connect workers with both free tax filing and tax credits. We provide outreach tools, trainings like this one, and resources to help you in your work. You can visit our website, EITC Outreach, for more information and resources. So today's webinar is a part of the virtual training series that we've been doing that features the expertise of campaign partners in the field. You can find past trainings on our website and on our YouTube page. So we are extremely lucky today to have Kaylan Somerville of Blue Umbrella. Kaylan Somerville is an innovative, nimble, and experienced fundraising executive who has raised and managed nearly $20 million since 2005, a huge number. For over 10 years, Kaylan has increased revenue from several multi-million dollar nonprofit organizations, including the YMCA of Metropolitan Washington, the American Nurses Foundation, and Big Brothers Big Sisters. In 2011, Kaylan launched the Blue Umbrella Fundraising to help nonprofits of all sizes mitigate risks and maintain strategy and stride amidst organizational shifts and transitions. As principal, she provides customized, comprehensive, plug-and-play strategies that are simple, innovative, and sustainable. Kaylan is a proud advisory board member for a newly formed youth-serving organization, Raising a Village. She is a sought-after facilitator, currently serving as trainer for the Foundation Center, Baltimore City Mayor's Office, and the Family League of Baltimore. She's a graduate of St. Mary's College of Maryland. Kaylan and her husband are proud parents of 4 children. So Blue Umbrella, her organization, is a full-service fund development firm on a mission to generate revenue, build sustainable systems, and inspire transformative philanthropy within the nonprofit sector. Blue Umbrella draws from a network of professional consultants with deep sector knowledge and a broad range of expertise. Blue Umbrella partners as strategist, coach, trainer, and interim staff to bring a fresh approach to each nonprofit's most complex challenges. Whether your organization is developing a new fundraising program or in need of an innovative strategy to pursue untapped potential, they have got you covered. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Kaylan. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much, Jenny. It's an extreme pleasure to be with you all today and to be able to share some steps with you for successful fundraising so that you can sustain your VITA program. We are going to jump right into the agenda because we have, as Jenny said, a jam-packed schedule. Based on your poll responses, we are going to establish a baseline first, looking at some giving trends throughout the U.S. Then we're going to move on to building a case for support, really being able to build the base of donors that you all currently have and expand your reach. And then lastly, we're going to give some very tactical steps on how to fundraise in action. We are covering a broad range. With the registration responses, we realized that we have over 150 program sites in over 30 states currently represented on the phone today. And so for that reason, we want to make sure that this program is very relevant to you, despite whether you're in a rural area or an urban setting, or anywhere throughout the country. All right. Also, today's responses, we realized that we have some diversity in the room as it pertains to your revenue. Okay. A lot of you all are securing revenue through grant funders, which makes sense based on the scope and the nature of your work, that you would be securing money from federal, local, and state governments. So today we are going to touch on grants very briefly, just how to engage funders on a different level and how to prospect some funders. But the bulk of our session today will focus on individuals. Okay, so individuals is a way that we can create that sustainable base, that if one or two come and go, our programs don't shut down. All right. So we're going to start off with another poll question, just because we like to ask questions. What is your job function? So I am a social worker by trade. I got into fundraising about 12 years ago now, but in my prior life, I was a social worker, a foster care case manager. And a lot of what I did as a social worker, working for different organizations, was helping them secure funding so that I could get paid every week. And so we would do some sessions on how to write grants. I quickly found myself doing some speeches and conversations with different funders and folks out in the community, all to try to secure money for the programs and for the children and families we serve. And so I know a lot of you all are in a similar boat where fundraising is not your primary occupation. All right, so the results are starting to come back. We have 64% of you all say that you are program staff. 8% currently is development staff, 23% executive leadership, 3% volunteers, and 3% other. All right, so yes, you're in a similar boat as I was myself about 15 years ago. So we're going to make sure that this is relevant and pertinent to you all, where you can leverage what you're already doing so that it helps sustain the organization. So jumping right in, giving trends in the U.S. These results came out in June this year to show us that over 70% of all charitable dollars come in from individuals. That's almost $300 billion comes in through individuals, okay? Corporations account for about 5%. Bequests, which can actually be considered individual gifts as well, which is a gift made in your death with estate planning, that's about 8%. And then foundations account for 15%. All right? So I think that this is really important for us to recognize, because as we go after pots of money, we want to make sure that our focus is where the money is. All right? And one of the other things we need to realize is that individuals don't just give at church. That has been a traditional myth that most individuals are giving their money every Sunday or whenever the Sabbath they observe, they give during a service. And that is true to a certain extent, but that's only about 6% of all charitable dollars. The VITA program would fall under human services and public society benefit. So you all have about an 18% chance to get some good money in the door. The other thing I want to draw your attention to is that in 2015 to 2016, you all actually saw some minor increase in human services, but a decrease in public society benefit. International affairs grew tremendously, and we can probably account a lot of that for the political shifts in our country. But there are some pots of money on this board that you probably haven't traditionally gone after. And so when we start to build a case for support, we'll look at the variety of ways that you can frame the work that you're already doing to access some different pots of money. All right, so when I was looking at the results before today's session, I noticed that a few of you all are in rural areas throughout our country. And I wanted to make sure that we had an equal playing field, because oftentimes there seems like there's more opportunity to secure funding in an urban setting. So I looked at a study done by the Association of Fundraising Professionals and the Indiana School of Philanthropy, which found that both urban and rural residents the amount contributed is closely related to some of the same factors. So that being a college graduate, being married, frequency of religious attendance, level of wealth, and level of income. All right, so we know these individuals in our communities. They're usually pretty well suited. We know the neighborhoods that they live in. We know where you have to have a high socioeconomic status to be able to live. And so those are the same types of folks, regardless of your community, that are going to be our prime prospects. Also, in rural communities, we notice that a lot of the donors express the same sentiments or values. So those with more should help those with less. All right, so those with more should help those with less. A lot of times those are church-going folks, but these are people with just an altruistic or goodwill and good nature about themselves. They volunteer across multiple organizations. They are giving to multiple organizations. Secondly, giving is a way to express religious beliefs. And last, nonprofit organizations are more effective in delivering services than government agencies. Now, this is a little catch-22 for you all, because we know that you have an affiliation with, government agencies, but at the same time, you are a nonprofit and you are the boots on the ground. So you still have that leverage there. Okay. One of the other things I wanted to mention too, as you're fundraising in rural communities, is that sometimes you have a seasonal flow of residents or tourists. You can also utilize churches and existing relationships. And when we talk about mailing to residents or neighbors in rural communities, consider multiplying your numbers by reaching out to family, friends, college students, and former locals. Okay, former locals are going to be kind of key to keep good records of where people go, your donors, where they move to, if that's at all possible. Lastly, one thing I want to mention is that regardless if you're in a rural community or an urban setting, competition is always there. In your urban settings, it's a saturation of the nonprofit sector. And a lot of times there's a duplication of services, with multiple agencies that are trying to eradicate poverty. And so with that being said, we're always at a competition, and we always have a limited pool of prospects. All right? So the VITA story. One of the most significant ways to secure funding and to grow a base is always to tell a compelling story. You know this by watching the TV when the commercial comes on with the little sad cat, and they tell the story about why this cat needs our support. We feel compelled to want to know how we can provide resources or assistance. I find myself being compelled sometimes to give to organizations I would have never thought I would give to, because they haven't even been on my radar. So it's really important for us to leverage social media and existing publications to tell our story, to build awareness, raise donations, and engage donors. So we're going to jump into social media. Now, social media is a tremendous platform for nonprofit organizations to market to a broad audience in an inexpensive way. All right, so oftentimes we don't market as often, and we have the same individuals coming through the door or aware of what we do because we lack the funds to be able to market. So definitely use social media with photos, videos, and captions to get different ones in the door and aware of what you do. One of the things I love to do is number 2, give shout outs to influencers, donors, volunteers, and event guests, tagging them in posts and including their username. This immediately will attach you to their base, and it shows an affiliation. So you can give a shout out, you can say thank you, you can attach yourself to them any kind of way you see you deem appropriate. One of the other things that I recently learned is that you can use a period before a username, and that will even go to people that are like a suggested user. So I have to look more into that, but it's ways that you can multiply your posts by tagging different ones. Create a toolbox of photos and short videos. Many of you are probably already doing this, but if you're not, all we're asking is that you collect from your feedback and comment sheets just little quotes and little snippets. Ask people to take a picture, maybe with a sign that said VITA changed my life, or something like that that's kind of quirky, straight to the point, and eye-catching. All right, these things will always engage folks. Also, encourage your program participants to include your organization on pictures and videos that pertain to your mission. So if you are doing a drive of some sort this holiday season, or you're externally facing with another partner organization, make sure people tag you as well, so that they know that you're a legitimate community partner and that you're in the know, you're in the mix. Lastly, have your executive director record a short thank you video after a campaign or anything that you're doing to raise money or engage the community. A little tip that I put here was for PR or marketing, you can absolutely do an interview for the local paper or news station. You can quickly write them. Even the paper, you can say, here's an op-ed when the news cycle is slow. You can also look for funding for capacity building. In the DC area, Meyer Foundation, and on the national level, Kellogg is one of the biggest funders that oftentimes will support capacity building. Another thing you can use is Meltwater, which is a service that you can purchase where you can actually email every PR person in your city based on their segment. So whether that be entertainment or whether that be poverty issues or diversity issues, you can email them all at once, your press release, and they can pick it up or not, but they have that opportunity. All right, Network for Good, Classy, and Hootsuite also have good free webinars on how to utilize social media to engage donors. I have now listed some of my favorites who are really at the forefront to raise money for poverty-related issues. And Kiva is one of those. Their slogan is, dreams are universal, opportunities are not. And they do such a good job with showing people that are hardworking, but it's not enough without your support. Just because life happens to us all and situations happen to us all. The Gates Foundation, I love the way that they utilize data and statistics in a very hopeful way. Some organizations, when they tell you your statistics, you got a tear in your eye and you feel like your dollar is not going to make a difference. But the Gates Foundation, you know that they have a gazillion dollars, but for some reason you still want to give your little dollar into their pot. And that's what we want people to do for you all, okay? So you can tout facts and statistics and still preserve the dignity of your participants and still provide a sense of hope. And my last one is Open Society. This is kind of a strong image, but what I liked about Open Society, they always translate their posts. And so they're not limiting their posts to one demographic. They're making sure wherever you are in the world, you know exactly what's going on with their program and how they're making a difference in a variety of communities. And I think that's important when we're talking about serving the masses and really those that have been traditionally disenfranchised. Okay? So before we move on to fundraising in action, I'm whipping through this, guys. Before we move to fundraising in action, we are going to ask another question. What are your fundraising challenges? So we asked in the poll, what is one thing that you would like to learn? And a lot of you wanted to learn about, really being able to frame social media and to use different tactics to get your word out. You wanted to know how to engage individuals more regularly and consistently, and you wanted to know where is the money. So what funders can we tap into as a VITA program? And as the results are coming in, we see that the majority of you all are looking at one of your challenges being identifying funding sources. 44% said retaining and engaging donors. 36% said sustainability. 20% said you don't hear back from a funder after submitting a grant application. And 40% said not enough time or staff. Okay. All right, very good. So now that we have an understanding of what the challenges are, the question becomes, how do we position ourselves to ask for money and succeed? We have an understanding of what it takes to market on social media and to do some, pretty low-level grassroots kind of PR. And now the question is, how do we move from create awareness to asking? All right? I wanted to start off by giving you a glimpse of some national funders. When we look at what our case for support is, VITA is not just providing income tax assistance. VITA is actually engaging and mobilizing numerous volunteers, okay? And so one of the national funders that provides resources and donations for civic engagement, community service, and volunteerism is the Engaged Citizens Award. This award is provided to do exactly what you're already doing. It's a national program, and the application deadline is January 5th. Another thing that I feel like VITA does in the community is to help those that are looking for work, those that have jobs but want to move up the workforce ladder. So workforce development, even advocacy is something that you all are doing on a day-to-day basis. Public Welfare Foundation has this one particular program that may or may not be a fit for your particular program, but they have a wealth of other opportunities for individuals and organizations to apply for funding. And so as you think of your work, it's really important that we reframe and reimagine what we're doing, okay? It's workforce development, it's civic engagement, it's advocacy. It's also disrupting the cycle of poverty. What VITA does is disrupting the cycle of poverty. We're empowering individuals to understand their own finances. We're empowering them to not be gouged with different organizations that will give you a quick refund for exchange of $300 to $500. All right, so the Hertz Foundation provides funding for organizations that tackle the roots of chronic poverty. All right. The Brown Foundation also provides funding for volunteers and community service. Like the Engaged Citizens Award, when I think of VITA, I think of funders that would want to support, continued civic engagement. Depending on how your volunteer process is structured, you may qualify for funding from organizations like the Brown Foundation. You all have a lot of costs that are incurred by having volunteers. If you do any screening, if you do any training, that's all the costs that you all incur that these different foundations and organizations could support. Regionally, there's an association called the Regional Association of Grant Makers. This forum is a national network of local leaders and organizations that help to provide effective charitable giving. All right, so they basically raise money to give it away regionally. And so as you're looking to determine who you should go after for grant money, one of the places that I think would be beneficial to start would be RAGs. So how do we find top grant makers in our area? There are several free programs where you can find funders, and one being the Grantmanship Center. On their page, you can, and I put the link on the site, on their page you can click on your state and you can find the top community foundations, corporate giving programs, and state, local government resources for funding, who these funders are. One of the best things that you can do when looking for grant funders is to take the areas we discussed, community service, poverty, workforce development, and create templates with a narrative and a budget. Create a committee. All right, we know a lot of you all are program staff. Grab a development person or someone else that's going to help you write the grant and determine for those bucket areas how you can put together a 1 to 2 page template. So when these opportunities come up, like you have this one for engaged citizens, it's due in January, I already have something locked and loaded that's ready to go with narrative and a budget that all I have to do is tweak for this funder. So if we're looking at 3 to 5 different areas that you all might qualify for, outside of just a regular old human service or public society benefit, then when the opportunity comes, I know it's already had the blessing of the executive director, it already has the blessing of programs, and I'm ready to go. All right? One of the things I also want to say is under promise and over deliver. When it comes to grant writing, don't try to make it so spectacular that you cannot complete whatever they are asking for. If you know that you have a goal of X and you know that you can meet that goal, go a little, you can even go under it a little bit so that it looks like you blew it out of the water. But those types of things funders are looking at to say, okay, this group is successful and they can deliver on what they promised. All right, so I wanted to look at just a couple of funding resources to show you how some of these search engines that you can find online, some free resources, they'll pull out different resources. All right, the free resources oftentimes, sometimes they do not give you contact information, they don't give you the contact name, and sometimes they don't allow you to search outside of the region. But they still have some very useful information, especially as a starting point. So if you're a program staff and you're wondering, where to start, you can go to Grantmanship. I also list some broad resources at the end that you can definitely take with you and start there for some general research. All right, so now, trying to raise money from individuals, that 72% that have almost $300 billion in our country. How can we get a meeting with them? So we figured out really where we're going to craft our message. We know that we're looking at workforce development, disrupting poverty, all these different things. So how do we get a meeting with these individuals? The most effective way to solicit individuals in this order is personal face-to-face meetings with a team of 2 preferably, a personal letter with a telephone follow-up. Then next is a personal telephone call with a letter follow-up, and so on and so forth. When you are trying to secure money the best bet is to have a face-to-face meeting. And so for this reason, the best people to meet with are those people that we know. So you say, well, I don't know anybody, or I wouldn't be on the phone. Yes, you do. We all know somebody, even if we're not altogether committed or connected with them. And so what I like to do is have the board, the volunteers, and different ones sit down and discuss who they know. And that's a good start. But another good start that you can do by yourself is pick that one or two loyal volunteer, one or two loyal donors that have given and been engaged with you for more than 1 to 2 years. You can have a face-to-face meeting with them and not ask for $1. The most important thing that you can gather from somebody who has supported your organization, whether it's as a volunteer or as a donor, is to figure out why they support you. Then you can start to take that information back and figure out how you can replicate that across the board. The people that support our organization are interested in what? What have we done well? What can we improve on? All right? And then a lot of times it's okay to ask them, well, who should we be talking to? Who should we be in front of? And that's how we start to build out our list. If our goal is to raise $25,000, this is a very simple way that we can align ourselves to get to that goal. We know in fundraising, a best practice is if I need one gift, I need 5 prospects. All right? If I need one gift, I need 5 prospects. And so who has the commitment, the capacity, and the connection to give us these gifts at these levels? All right? So when I say connection, commitment, and capacity, you can also call that ability, access, and affinity. These are the individuals that have these qualities. That shaded area in the middle, that's our sweet spot. Those are the individuals that we want to make sure know about our special events, know about our open house, know our executive director by name, that we invite to everything that we do, and that we are in constant communication with. How to get a meeting. In fundraising, we always say, ask for money, get advice. Ask for advice, get money. All right? Nobody is coming to a meeting if you're asking for money, unless you are that far along in the process. That initial meeting, we want to talk about ourselves, what we've done in life. We want to hear what you guys are doing, your big vision, your audacious goals. We want to be able to engage with you and get to know you, all right? So keep your meetings to 20 minutes or less. People with money don't have a lot of time. If they cancel the meeting with you the first time, we always say, you got the right person. Because that person is a decision maker, that person is busy, and that person is moving and shaking. So don't get discouraged with that, okay? We also want to make sure that we are asking for a meeting in the way that the person we're talking to wants to be asked. So you know them to some degree, and if you don't, ask someone who does. And so you know exactly how to approach them. Always be nice to the people that answer the phone. Always be nice to the gatekeepers, okay? Because those are the people that are going to make sure you get on the calendar or that you don't. Plain and simple. So a lot of the VITA programs are functioning as subsidiaries or as part of larger organizations. And so we know that it can be difficult to fundraise and to get meetings with funders that maybe your parent organization are already approaching. So in this case, we want to make sure that you have some tools where you can still ask for money and still respect the house that you live in. So do a thankathon to VITA donors and volunteers. That doesn't take away from anything or anybody. And at the same time, it still gets you in front of the right people, and it still allows them to know that they're appreciated and that you can put a bug in their ear that, you know, when you fill out your pledge card this year to said organization, don't forget VITA. Also, ask and see if you can send a year-end letter to sponsor a family. We know that there are costs that you incur to train and screen volunteers and to orient volunteers, but there's also some things that I'm sure you all do for families from time to time. And whatever that cost is or whatever you would like it to be, quantify that and write a letter. This is the most charitable time of the year, so definitely want to take advantage of that. Sending a quick holiday card or even an email is a great way to continue to stay in front of folks. You can share a story at a holiday party or in the holiday card of a family that you all have served. Someone can give a testimonial, a video message, any kind of thing like that allows people to know, hey, that's right, VITA is a charitable organization that is doing a great work that no one else in the community quite does. And so you want to make sure that you are doing those things. And then lastly, how about we place a thermometer at a program site or pledge cards on the tables at a programmatic event? What this does is allow guests and different individuals to see that there's a goal. You need to raise $500. You need to raise $5,000. And when people see that, it makes them want to move it up or tick it up a little bit. And so if you have just a little box or something that's visible at your site, it allows people to know that they can give to you all, and it makes a difference. Now, corporations. So individuals typically have jobs if we're doing it right. And if we have a job, we have a company we work at. These companies oftentimes will match the gifts of their employees. A very simple thing to do is the folks that are already giving you money, make sure on the pledge card or on their thank you letter to put a PS and ask if their company will match their gift. I've given a very rudimentary list of companies that match gifts throughout the country. And with this, you can say, okay, well, I know somebody that works at Ford, the company or the foundation. And so they could, you know, the company can match their gift. Also, there are organizations like Costco and DuPont that will also give where their employees live. And so if you have a Costco's in your area or DuPont in your area, among other organizations, they will just give to you because you're in that community. So, of course, it's an application process, and sometimes the gifts are $5,000 or less, but it's sometimes not as competitive because they are smaller pools of money. And when you have someone that you are providing a service for, and you realize that they work at these companies, or, you know, they provided you a donation and you realize that they work at these companies, it's okay to make mention of the opportunity to match a gift and to see if they would even be an advocate for you. So this is an example of an organization on how they advertise the matching gift opportunity. You know, add even more value to your gift. You can put this online. You can add this as a part of your newsletter. It could be a PS in your emails or your print letters. These are more companies that offer matching gifts. Allstate is also a very charitable organization, and they're in most communities. Nationwide, all those big insurance companies, Prudential is big on diversity as well as Target. And so they're looking at organizations that not only are helping to disrupt poverty, but also organizations that are diverse in nature. All right, volunteer grants. We are volunteer income tax assistance. So you all have volunteers, but there are companies that will actually give you money to supply volunteers. And these companies want their folks to be out in the community so much that they will actually give you money if you are able to secure their company for your project. They typically like to do projects where they're going to be seen on social media. You know, they want people that have a good draw so they can be aligned with that mission. And I think that VITA provides a strong bandwidth to provide that type of leverage that they would be seeking. Also, consider Kohl's department stores, which is one of my favorites. I've used them several times. They pay you $500 for every 5 volunteers that you have. And Kohl's is a pretty expansive department store now. But Starbucks, Deloitte, and Allstate also have volunteer programs. All right, so they'll pay you to volunteer. Also consider affinity groups like Blacks at Microsoft. Most large companies will have these smaller diversity groups where they're trying to engage diverse audiences. So you all have that in your favor. Local businesses. Who owns the local restaurant? How can we connect with local businesses to make sure that we have some kind of presence where our families are, as well as our volunteers and our donors? All right, so we have social media, but our local businesses are sometimes the easiest connections that we have. Not only are they a good way for us to engage with the community, but they can also put a donation box in their restaurant or their store. They can also make us a charity of choice for the year. And oftentimes all they want is maybe their logo up in a particular publication or a banner at our program site. And so that doesn't cost us very much to have that strong relationship. All right, they might know us on committee meetings like the local Lions Club or Rotary. A lot of times meet in restaurants or local businesses, and we could have a relationship with them as well, you know, if we started to engage our local business more. They also, in terms of red tape for applying for donations, it's not a difficult thing to do with a local business. When you look at franchises, oftentimes there's more red tape. All right, the banking industry. We know that VITA has a strong relationship with the banking industry, and there's some sites that we know will probably do this a little better, but definitely engage the banks. They're always doing financial literacy, as you know. And aside from national banks, you have your local credit unions, your local banks, and even investment firms. If you recall from the first couple of slides, 18%, I believe it was 18%, comes from bequest. And so, you know, when you're talking to Edward Jones or even a Prudential and different ones like that, make sure that you can put a little ad sometimes in their newsletter or leave some of your brochures and information so that people know that they can give to you on a long-term basis. I put Wells Fargo on here. I know that they've had some issues here lately in terms of some fraudulent activities, especially to those that are, you know, low income to moderate income status. And so this is an opportunity for them, as I found with other organizations, that they're trying to regain trust in the community as well as have a better branding. And so it's okay to go with organizations that have had some mistakes in the past, because they might be more apt to give to organizations to kind of dispel that they, you know, are still doing predatory things or activities. Community giving. There's several different organizations like Whole Foods that will actually they'll sponsor a community event to be able to secure donations for you. All right, so as this says, as a company, we're quite unique. Our stores are not cookie cutter. Each one of our stores has a lot of latitude in deciding the best way to operate that individual store, to meet the needs of local communities, and to make community giving really fun and special. So they have these things at Whole Foods called the 5% days, where they give 5% of that day's net sales are donated to a local nonprofit organization. So there's a lot that you can do. Whole Foods are in a lot of our communities now. And so definitely engage them, not just for free leftover pastries, but also engage them for monetary donations. All right. So I kind of ran through this pretty quickly. National resources. These are a list of some different organizations that can provide to you some capacity building, some funding, as well as a network of nonprofits to really be able to garner best practices. As we discussed before, there's funding for capacity building as well. And so that's something that you should definitely look into as you're starting to build your girth up in terms of marketing and communications, as well as trying to find board members or different folks that can help support your cause and the VITA initiatives. So right now we are going to start taking some questions that you all have. So if you want to type in some questions, we can definitely take those at this time.
Awesome. Okay, so we have already gotten a few questions from you all. So the first question I received was, does the 5-to-1 ratio of prospects to donors apply to other sources besides individuals, such as corporations and foundations?
Oh, that's a great question. Yes, and 1 to 5 is actually when you have a warm relationship. So if these people are cold prospects, these funders are cold prospects, I would say it's more like 1 to 7. But for warm relationships that these individuals or funders have typically given to organizations similar to VITA, they have provided resources and funding in your community, then that's a 1 to 5 ratio. But if it's like pulling straws out of a hat and you're not quite sure and it might be a stretch, I would say use more of a 1 to 7 ratio.
So what about corporations and foundations?
Yes. Same rule applies to corporations and foundations, absolutely.
Okay, cool. And can you describe the profile of a typical private donor to VITA? Are they business owners, bankers, retirees?
That would definitely take some more research, but just from what I found in my preliminary, scope in preparing the presentation, I think a lot of the folks that would be interested in VITA are those individuals that are interested in civic engagement, workforce development, community service, as well as folks that are interested in disrupting the cycle of poverty. And so oftentimes, as we saw in those preliminary slides about fundraising in rural communities, the typical donor looks the same across the country and across organizations. So they're college graduates, they have some level of disposable income, they're interested in giving back to others. All those qualities and values are pretty typical across sectors and industries. And one thing that I would say for VITA programs that we have to be aware of is that we have to continually stay in front of them and engage them. It has been some research done that finds to retain donors, it's important that they feel like there's a meaningful engagement or that their donation is always making some type of difference. And so I think that that's important, as we're looking for folks to bring into our program.
Okay. So we did receive a comment. So don't forget Dollars for Doers programs in addition to corporate matches.
Yes, Dollar for Doers. That's the volunteer giving programs that we were talking about, like with Kohl's and Deloitte and Starbucks. Dollars for Doers, you can actually Google Dollars for Doers. And then you can also Google double the donation when you're looking at matching gift ideas or programs. Those are two like little key phrases that will often bring out some good ideas.
So what is a good way to approach the city or county council to get them involved with a nonprofit program?
Yes. So as we discussed before, I have had the opportunity to work with Baltimore City pretty extensively over the summer in the mayor's office, really to help grassroots nonprofit organizations understand their power in the community, as well as help them secure funding. And one of the greatest assets you have as a nonprofit sector as it relates to county council is the numbers. And so you have greater numbers together. I always tell nonprofit organizations, when it comes to getting in front of the county council or even in front of funders a lot of times, to go into meetings and opportunities as partners and go in together. When I used to work for Big Brothers Big Sisters, we used to have a memorandum of understanding with several of the Boys and Girls Clubs in the area. And what that did was it took my small program that only had a $300,000 budget, and it gave me more credibility. It gave me more individuals that I was serving, because I was in partnership with these different nonprofit organizations that also had a credible name, that also had a strong bandwidth in the community, and also had the same mission areas as I did. And so anytime that you are, up against a funding opportunity with a big, large national funder, for instance, or even your local city government, definitely consider multiplying your efforts by going in as a partner organization. When you're partnering, you might not get the full pot of money, but it's better than getting zero. Also, for county councils and city government, a lot of times they have grant opportunities that are available, as you probably already know, right on their website. And so they have sometimes rolling deadlines and sometimes very strict deadlines, but definitely look into your local politicians and ask them about funding opportunities for your area as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So those are all the questions we had today. Thank you so much, Kaylan, for your presentation. We do have a couple announcements before we wrap up. So we will be having a couple of great trainings coming up. As a follow-up to this training, we'll have another fundraising training on November 30th, which will feature Kathy Matthews of Enterprise Community Partners and Kate Herman Stone of LadderUp. So during this training, you'll find out how to create mutually beneficial partnerships with banks, as Kaylan mentioned, that can lead to tax site and event sponsorships, volunteers, and more. So discover how to approach banks, what to say, and what to offer to get them to say yes. You'll also learn how to leverage a taxathon to raise funds for your VITA program. On December 7th, we will have another training with Communally called Tax Solutions for Long-Term Financial Stability. They will share how to incorporate asset building and connection to other benefit programs at free tax sites. Links to register for both of these trainings will be sent out in an email soon, along with the recording and slides. Awesome. So thanks, y'all, so much. I have up here Kaylan's contact information, including her phone number, email, and Twitter handle. And Kaylan is happy to chat with y'all further and answer questions as they come.
Yes, feel free to email me, call me, or connect with me on social media.
Perfect. Thank you. Again, here is our contact information at the Get It Back campaign. Feel free to shoot us an email if you have any other questions. Thanks y'all so much for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day.